Om Sada Shiva Samhita Shankaracharya Madhyama Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Parampara Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheswara Guru Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Phunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahi Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidyushavai. Om Shanti. So thank you all of you for this new text called Shiva Samhita. So this text is named as Shiva Samhita because Lord Shiva happens to be the teacher and the Parvati, his consort, becomes the disciple. So now here, because he has taught, that's why because of him, after his name, it comes Shiva, Samhita, put together. If we observe the word Samhita, it reflects in different ways in different places. For example, in Vedic literature also we have Samhita, we have Aranyaka, we have Mantra, of course we have this Upanishad. So there where the mantras with the interpretation, that is different Samhita, and here this Samhita means that few things have been put together. And if you look at this particular text, it's an amazing text. In fact, this text is the combination of both yoga and also tantra. And this particular text mainly influenced by this Srividya tradition. Hope we will do the justice to the text. And if we look at this particular text, as I said, put together, many things have been discussed in details because this text has got 5 chapters. And each chapter talks really beautifully. And why I highlighted especially that it is connected to Srividya and of course tantric aspect also is involved, because the first chapter talks about the common aspect, like how people think differently, what is karma kanda, how they look at, how jnana kanda people look at, and of course what is the concept of yoga and maya, so named as Laya Yoga. Second chapter is called knowledge of tattva. So here it talks about a lot of that, how the jivatma functions, how what happens, all these things. And in the third chapter talks about this yoga system and of course its practices, where it really highlights so who is a guru and who is adhikari and what is a pranayama, and of course how to do the suddhi, and few asanas also are being discussed, even though there are more asanas, but only few asanas have been taught. And of course fourth chapter talks about mudra, how this mudra plays a big role, and the final chapter is called as Raja Yoga. This is the confusion everywhere comes. So these people, this one group have taken away this word and created a big mess, taking few points from here of course. So when I was looking at the text, I was going through text, and you will be getting hopefully whatever class I'll take, that much if I can translate beforehand it will be great, because at least I have to definitely translate for myself, because when I was looking at the text, the translation that is available definitely is creating confusion. So when I am getting confused with reference to the translation, and better I should not talk about you people. So anyone can really get confused with reference to any translation. So let me not really spend much time on this, because as the text will unfold, so we'll try to develop the topic and we'll bring the introduction part 2. So let us now read the first chapter, the first verse. If you can, it will be great. Ekam jnanam nityam adyante sunyam nanyat kinchit vartate vastu satyam yad vedo vedosmin indriyopadhina vai jnanasyayam bhasate nanyatheva ekam jnanam nityam adyanta sunyam nanyat kinchit vartate vastu satyam yad vedosmin indriyopadhina vai jnanasyayam bhasate nanyatheva ekam jnanam nityam adyanta sunyam nanyat kinchit vartate vastu satyam yad vedosmin indriyopadhina vai jnanasyayam bhasate nanyathaiva. This is how we'll go. Remember, this is what we do all the time. Before starting anything, always we start with invocation. We start with some type of bringing auspiciousness. Sometimes we do invoke the God, we invoke the teacher. So to make sure that the starting should be smooth, and not only that, let the text also continue. Whereas here, the Lord himself being the teacher, so the invocation part is entirely different. So here straight away is being asked, here analyzed, ekam jnanam goes to the completely highest mode. Opening statement itself, ekam jnanam nityam nitya. So that means there only one thing exists, ekam. And of course that one without second, and which is eternal. And interestingly, that is called jnanam, that is called knowledge, that is called here consciousness. So that means with whose presence everything moves, with whose existence everybody is depending upon. Now let that existence, let that consciousness bless us. This becomes the prayer version. This becomes the opening version. So that means the opening itself is a grand. That let the one means the opening does not allow the duality. So when the opening does not allow the duality, because any other prayer you will see there is a duality. There is the person who prays. There is in fact we say Trinity. The person prays. There is a process of prayer and of course the object of prayer. Whereas here straight away comes to the knowledge. Why it is being said, you have to really understand very carefully. Here is going to analyze many things and going to dismiss, and of course will be establishing technically yoga means understanding based on certain practices. We'll be seeing very carefully because we cannot go out of the text, but at the same time we have to be very careful because this sort of text, if we are not really alert, there will be misunderstanding. So that's why he says, Ekam Jnanam Nityam Adyanta Sunyam. So only the Jnanam, this is what the Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma, that is being discussed in the Taittiriya Upanishad. So he's talking about that Jnanam, that knowledge, that consciousness, that which exists only one, there is no second. And which is Jnanam, that is Satyam. And in fact, that is called Anantam, that is called Brahma. And that being one, no beginning nor end, means only one thing exists all the time. That's why he says, na anyat kinchit vartade. Other than that, nothing exists. That's why this truth only exists. That means only one thing exists. And of course, now we are going to discuss about that, and let that oneness accommodate, bless me. This is called, asking to be part of the teaching. Really making yourself to get tuned to the teacher. And when this happens, when really you embrace the oneness, when mentally you prepare to embrace the oneness, definitely sometimes there will be question. What about this present scenario? What happens, what is happening in front of me? So to overcome, the next line beautifully says, Yad Vedosmin, whatever you see the diversities, there are differences, there are dualities, including the teaching here. The teacher is sitting here. And of course, the text, this also comes under duality. Forget about my son, my mother, my wife, my husband, all my children, that is secondary. Starting with the teacher teaching is different. There is some type of diversion. So how to look at that? He says, Yad Vedosmin. So whatever you see the differences, whatever diversities that you see in this world, don't worry, it is nothing. Indriyopadhina vai. That's a beautiful point. It is indeed a conditioning. So what is that conditioning? The conditioning which is the result of our sense organs. Because limited sense organs will have limited understanding. Because its field of experience is limited. Please understand most carefully this particular point. For example, the vastness of the sky cannot be appreciated by limited eyes. Because the eyes cannot understand, really cannot appreciate the vastness. You see the vast, please understand, you see the sky. So the moment you come to the horizon, then after that what happens? Your eyes becomes redundant. In fact, eyes does not play any role. So also every sense organs being limited and its sphere of experiencing being limited, definitely unlimited, cannot be grasped, cannot be understood by it. So that's why whatever we see the differences, whatever we see the duality, all this duality is related to our conditioning, that is again related to our sense organs. And of course, Manaha, the mind becomes sixth sense organs. Apart from these five sense organs, the organs of perceptions mainly here, mind also becomes the sixth one. So that means very clearly, so whenever and wherever we see the difference, when there is duality, when there is diversity, it is nothing but because of my own conditioning. You can see for yourself in a psychological way how it works. That, for example, in a house, There should be harmony. The whole house works with one mind. Supposed to. But if there are conditionings, so each one, let us say, or few of them have got different conditionings, or you have got different conditionings, then what happens? Will you see the diversity? Will you function in a different way or not in the house? Just look at how you function in your life. So if this can happen with reference to in your family, where transactionally we are supposed to be one, what to talk of this mental thing, mind that does all sort of diversification. And he says, no problem. When all these things, beautifully, when jnanasyayam bhasate na anyatha eva. When all this diversification will be understood. How? When the conditionings are resolved. So once the conditionings is being resolved, then what happens? You will discover the jnanam alone exists, and other than that nothing remains. That means only me exists. So this jnanam is me first. That's why the prayer starts with me. Such a beautiful way of looking at this verse. So it is me alone exists, and this me is nothing but Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahmaiti, and this is without any second, because only one and eternal, of course. It has no beginning, no end. That means I am always as I am, and other than me nothing exists. This is the truth. And whatever diversification I see my child, I see my husband, I see my wife, I see my this, I see my that. All these things are nothing but a result of my conditionings. And once my conditionings are resolved, then only me will prevail. In fact, there is nothing, only me. Where even if I see something that is actually me, because of my conditionings, I create the difference, as I gave you the example of house. Okay, now starts with this prayer verse. This is the beautiful prayer that I have ever come across. And the next verse beautifully highlights. The teaching starts. He says, Atha bhaktanuraktoham vakshe yoganusasanam Ishvara sarvabhutanam atma mukti pradayakah. Once more. Atha bhaktanuraktoham vakshe yoganusasanam Ishvara sarvabhutanam atma mukti pradayakah. As teaching starts, introducing this yoga sutras. Actually, when you look at this yoga traditionally, generally common people know this is Shiva Samhita, Gheranda Samhita, and of course Hatha Yoga Pradipika. Modern yoga teachers, they do talk only about Hatha Yoga Pradipika. Those who know little more, they will talk about this. Okay, there is Shiva Samhita, there is Gheranda Samhita. But also there are Yoga Upanishads. Many people do not know, like we have seen already Yoga Chudamani Upanishad. And of course we'll be seeing many more. So he says beautifully that this is the God's statement, Aham Bakshe. Now I am going to explain. So what I am going to explain? This is beautifully, the teaching is going to get unfolded. That what is that? The teaching is yoganushasana. The teaching of yoga. So he uses this word anushasana. Even though being the teacher, please, being the God, but always wants to bring the tradition, teaching tradition. Anushasana means teaching in keeping with whatever way the person was taught. So that means the person has to remember, recollect the way the person was taught. So that means the teaching tradition is being involved. That's why you can see this point. We say very clearly, to highlight this particular point, even though we say clearly, the first teacher is the God. So being the first teacher, so why he has to remind or why he has to bring the teaching tradition? Here, to highlight the prabhava nityatva. So when he uses what is yoganushasana, just to highlight pravaha nityatvam. When you say pravaha nityatvam means the perennially the teaching continues. So that means it is perennially eternal. Which in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna said to Arjuna beautifully, this particular knowledge already I have taught. And then I had taught to the Bhagavan, Bhagavan taught to Vishvamitra, the son Vishvamitra, and he taught to Manu, from Manu come to Ikshvaku, and from that it flows. Which, of course, Arjuna objected. What are you talking? Look, forget about this Ikshvaku and Manu. Son is so old. Vishvamitra, that too. This present, we have got different type of son, their name also different. That means it's very clearly understood that our teaching highlights, teaching knows the limitations of this earth. Let me not get into other aspect, we'll be seeing slowly. So, how can you say this? We are just born, maybe like, for 30, 40, 50 year old, and how can you say this? Of course, that time Krishna beautifully says, this is the problem. We both have been taking bath together. I remember my past, whereas you are not able to remember. So there again, Lord Krishna makes sure that pravaha nityatva, that perennially it is eternal, the teaching is perennially eternal. And maybe because of this reason, please understand, especially Hinduism doesn't, or Hindu people, really the serious sadhus do not bother what is happening in this world, but which is really not healthy either, because they know this teaching perennially will continue. Even if whoever comes, definitely this teaching will continue. But the problem is, there is a possibility the culture will be destroyed. That is what is happening nowadays. Okay, let me not again get into the controversial part. Coming back here, author. So here it says author, opening with this. Author means the auspicious. Now, let us say now this yoga teaching starts. Author also now. Also author is very auspicious thing, because very beautifully, as you know, Omkara, already we have discussed Omkara, Atha Sabdas. Both Omkara and Atha, Dvavetu Brahmana Pura, Kanthabhitya Viniryato. So it is considered as it comes out of the Brahma's word, and that this happens to the first word Om and Atha. That's why both are auspicious. And of course the Atha means also now. So now the yoga teaching starts. And who is the person? Who is that Aham? Is it an ordinary person? Can you see this concept? How this teaching tradition is so intact. It is not like somebody claiming that I am God. Or somebody says, look, God says this thing. That is how all religion starts flourishing. He says, Aham Ishwara. I am the Ishwara. And who is the Ishwara? This first line perfect. Bhaktanuraktaha. So the Ishwara who is attached, deeply attached to the devotee, means always cares for devotee. That is what the job of Bhakta, job of Ishvara. Because Ishvara, how it is deeply connected, you can see this point. Let us look at Ishvara being the universal principle, if you look at. So whoever is connected to the universal principle, definitely the universal principle will reciprocate. In whichever way you are connected. It is not like, all different type of or different religious Ishvara, different religion God. If you are connected with me, you are taken care. If you are not connected with me, of course you know what will happen. And most important thing is, beautifully says, Ishvara, what is the job of the Ishvara? Is not to forgive you. Because it is you forgive or you are helpless. That's why you didn't have any other choice. This is a completely nuisance. Ishvara job, the God job is not to forgive. Who is he to forgive? In fact, the job of the Ishvara, the God, is to protect. Why I relate with God? Please understand. It's a wrong concept of the God. Why do I relate with God? Hey, I am weaker now. I want to be protected. Oh God, protect me. Not to teach me to forgive me. This is completely wrongly people do it. However, he says beautifully, Ishvara, the God, is Sarva Bhutanam Atma Mukti Pradayakah. Beautifully, the teacher, here the Ishvara is somebody, giver of liberation. He is not a giver of heaven. Remember? Because in heaven, what you will do there? You will die. You will dine with him permanently. Or in a different context, our what is called this ISKCON group, you will do dandiya with Lord Krishna in Vrindavana, Golak Vrindavana. Hey, you will get tired. If I dance for 5 to 10 minutes, my legs start spinning. And imagine, suppose permanently I will keep dancing. What will happen to me? And of course, if I eat some, nowadays especially, if I see some good food, if I eat little more, I start bulging, painful. And of course, same food every day. Pasta, 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 pasta. 10 days. Then what will you say? Pasta, basta. And how can we keep eating for hours forever? That is not the job of the God at all. But he says, Ishvara Atma Mukti Pradayakah. So the job of the Ishvara is to give or to extend, to facilitate in different ways the liberation to all living beings, of course through teaching. So when he says, I say facilitate, also it can be allowing you to grow up emotionally, taking care of your likes and dislikes, what we call as with emotional maturity, what we technically put Chitta Suddhi also comes because of the God. Suppose you are also practicing this forgiveness, nothing wrong in it, which will be seen later on, don't worry. All these things he has really brought almost all religion and small people. Even if you are practicing this forgiveness, it's good, nothing wrong in it. But that is a value. So if you cannot highlight one value as the means for liberation, yes, that value is important for your emotional maturity. The turmoil that you have, especially the hurt that you have, please understand. Why this forgiveness is highlighted? Because the fellow went through a lot of hurt. Whole life he was hurt from the childhood and towards the end of the life. So that's why how to overcome that hurt? This forgiveness. You will practice forgiveness when you are deeply hurt and you are not able to resolve it. Can you see this point? That person highlights hurt. That person highlights forgiveness. The one who is deeply hurt and not able to face, not able to resolve. Whenever anybody talks this word forgiveness in your day-to-day life, I have seen many people do talk. Oh, forgive, please forgive. So when you say that please forgive, what does it mean? You are not ready to face the situation. You don't have strength to face the hurt that you have. And also you are not ready that how other is getting hurt either. That's why he says it beautifully. The job of the Ishvara is to facilitate for each one of us to be liberated, to give us freedom, not to bind us, make us branded or donkeys. That's why here he says it beautifully, Ishvara sarvabhutanam atma mukti pradayakah. The job of the Ishvara, job of the God is to give, to facilitate the liberation, of course through teaching. I have added it here very carefully or differently. That's why we have got krama mukti, lot of other aspects. That's why facilitate liberation or gives liberation through teaching. Okay, I understand. If this is the case, I would like to know how is it possible. Now let us look at the next verse, please. Tyaktva vivadashilanam mattam durgyana hetukam atmajnanaya bhutanam ananya gati chetasam tyaktva vivadashilanam mattam durgyana hetukam atmajnanaya bhutanam ananya gati chetasam. Beautifully says. How it does? First thing is tyaktva vivadashilana. So always the teaching job is to allow you to discard, to grow out of it, or making yourself away from it. What is that? The analytical approach. Vivada. So when you say analytical approach, where you want to present yourself that you know everything, you are superior. Indirectly highlights where you are trying to strengthen your ego. That insecurity that you have with reference to whatever, that is up to you. Now you want to create or give a protection. You want to defend that insecurity. You want to justify that sense of insecurity. And for that you are analytical. Please understand very carefully. Whenever you are analytical, whenever you try to give explanation, that's why when I notice I allow you people to ask the question, I discover that you people are defending, the questioning is not right. That's why then and there I try to give. Some of you don't understand also. Because when I see it, when you open your mouth, please understand. I am sorry to say today I must share. When you open your mouth, say Namaste Swamiji, I try to read it behind it. How your voice, when you say, how you say, even though I am not able to see, please understand, I try to read that too. Because that is the job of the teacher. If I really care for you, whether I like it or not, I have to do this. Because this is the teaching. So here, what happens, please understand, that time you take this analytical, or you encourage your analytical mind. When deep within you are insecure, and you know any moment your insecurity may get exposed. Deep within you feel that if the sense of insecurity gets exposed, so the deep within whatever heart, whatever, let us say, all these unresolved emotions are there, definitely is going to come out. So what you do, you create a layer of protection. And that layer of protection is nothing called justified mind. Taking the help of this analytical approach, But here the teaching says, first thing is tyaktva. First thing is allowing you to grow out of or creating a distance mentally from this analytical approach. Because when you do take this analytical approach, please understand, do you take the analytical approach to understand or to prove? Be honest, be very careful. Whenever you take this analytical approach with reference to anybody, anything, do you take this analytical approach to understand the situation, to understand other, or to prove and punish? You can see this beautifully, this point, especially police. Suppose a police is supposed to take this analytical approach to understand the crime, let us say. To understand the crime, the police has to take the help of analytical approach. But if you observe most of the police, what they do take the analytical approach not to understand the crime, but to punish the criminal. Can you see this point? So when you are, as a police officer, when you are trying to take the help of this analytical approach to understand the crime, your approach will be entirely different, and you will be respected even if by the criminals whoever has committed crime will look at you as a respected police officer. Whereas if your approach from the beginning is what? Yes, you do all sort of analysis to punish the criminal, because deep within already you know that person is a criminal. Can you see how, a small example, how the approach changes completely? That's why make sure whenever you are approaching something, how you refer, how you take the help of your analytical approach to understand or to protect and punish. Protecting oneself, punishing others. So that's why he says, first learn to create a distance. This is the first step of teaching. And that's why I'm trying to observe, that's why I stretch this point. I try to observe. Sometimes once in a while I must provoke you people. But the problem is, when I try to provoke you people, sometimes either you break down or you become indifferent, or you come to a conclusion, Swamiji is like this. You create a distance, you create a barrier. Please understand, I am observing each one of you. And all are wrong. See, out of concern, out of care, I am trying to point out. Try to see why I open a mouth about you or something. Why do I comment? Unless and until that seriousness comes in you, please understand, you will not be able to appreciate the teaching either. That's why he says beautifully, having discarded all analytical approach. So what you need to do is, this is what, because you try to strengthen your ego. Now he says beautifully, then what happens? And of course all these things, what happens already I have explained. Vivada silana mata drugyana hetukam. So drugyana hetukam means this is the cause of all sort of confusion, all sort of wrong notion, all sort of the jnana which is not good for you. That is called drugyana hetukam. The knowledge that you have which is not good, not healthy for you. But that's why I carefully translated that which leads to strengthen one's own ego. I did not want to be harsh while translating it. So if you observe all this Vivada Silanam, all this analytical approach that you have taken out, it is nothing just to destroy yourself. You are picking up, you are really associating yourself with a different type of knowledge, which again is strengthening your ego, your personality, or which leads all sort of complication in your life. Can you see this point very carefully? That's why it says, Atma Jnanaya Bhutanam Ananya Gati Chetasam. This is a beautiful point. This teaching is for what? Self-knowledge. Not strengthening your whims and fancies. Not strengthening your mind. Not strengthening this process or that process. This is something for the self-knowledge, to know one's own self. And of course, for whom? Ananya Gati Chetasam. This is the beautiful point to really appreciate. Only for them. The one whose mind is only looking for liberation. Na anya gati iti. Means for whom there is no other goal. For whom there is no other target. For whom there is no other destination other than liberation, other than understanding one's own self. Only for them, this teaching will be helpful. This teaching will be really working like a medicine. In fact, this is called, to grow out of or to get rid of this bhava roga, the disease related to this samsara, this creation. So if really you want this to work as a medicine, aushadha, and with reference to your bhava roga, so bhava roga means a disease, please understand, disease with reference to this universe, this society. Why? What is the disease? Your mechanical thinking, your sense of worries and anxieties, your sense of dependence. All these things are called disease. We'll be seeing in details, no problem. That's why, please understand, what really you are looking for in life, you need to understand and analyze carefully. That's why we say openly, Vedanta is not meant for everyone. Because it is not going to work. Unless you have certain maturity. You will be shocked to know, as I was watching today, of course this is the fun, which is a very sad part of it. One is, whatever is beautiful part, that is also sad part. Recently I was talking to somebody. Somebody said, Swamiji, I know Bhagavad Gita. I said, oh, did you study? No. Then, have you ever heard from a teacher? No, I know in details. How? I watched TV serial. In fact, in Mahabharata, now is going on, in Mahabharata, Gita was taught. It's a very unfortunate thing to say. Why I am trying to say is, maybe Hinduism is only one religion where all your scriptures are subject to interpretation, different type of interpretation, subject to go through different type of interpretation, and we didn't have any problem, because each one was asked to study the original. Nowadays nobody studies original. So all these serials or whatever, they do not create sensational, they do add few things here and there. Now this becomes recorded. Now a child when he watches this thing, that gets so much impressed. Tomorrow when he listens to some teacher, even including Bhagavad Gita, will say question, no, I had seen this thing in this, how can you say this? Forget about that. Maybe Gita is little like Ramayana, Mahabharata, whatever is going on, all these epics. It's entirely different what they saw, because they have to look at all the emotions of people. They add, they delete, they do a lot of things. Of course, they are doing a great job, but a lot of things. Only you can appreciate a lot when you have studied this Ramayana or Mahabharata epic in details. Just try to understand how we are going away of the situations. Today I was really very shocked. I was really getting shocked. What is going on? That's why it is better to study, then only look for comment, or else one will get lost. And that is what happens to all these yogic texts. That is what happens to all sort of teaching. You look at who is speaking. If the famous person is talking something, must be true. Hey, please understand, every entertainer is famous. Charlie Chaplin till now is famous. The speech that he gave, generally he doesn't talk, the speech that he gave one of the episode, till people remember. So because somebody is famous, that does not mean the person has got full authority to talk whatever. And that is called truth. You understand where we are leading? How we go wrong in life? However, let me not get into in different way. Here he highlights, if your goal is to be a free person, to be a liberated person, if that is the goal in your life, definitely you will be looking at this teaching as means for liberation, or else what will happen? That's why I took the Mahabharata, because today is going on this Mahabharata war in the television, where Dhritarashtra, the blind king, who was the cause of all confusion, in fact who was the cause of all destruction, instead of listening to Bhagavad Gita, he was worried and he was trying to understand what is going to happen next, whether my child is going to be protected or not. So while listening to it from Sanjaya, where the live telecast was going on, the first live telecast, let us say, so when he was able to see from a distance and describe in details, so instead of understanding the limitations, trying to understand how my thinking is working, the person was worried what is going to happen next, whether my child will be protected or not. So also the teaching that we are doing it. If you look at this teaching not from the standpoint of Arjuna, but the standpoint of Dhritarashtra, the blind person. Blind person means what? Not merely that his eyes were closed or he was blind. Means the mohan, how we say, the delusion, that attachment towards his son, that made him blind completely. So if you have strong attachment towards something or other in your life, and you want to take the help of this scripture to strengthen, to look at that attachment, how it is going to happen, or how to strengthen or not to strengthen, please understand, this text is not going to be helpful for your liberation. This will be just another text altogether. That's why it is Ananya Gati Chetasa. Okay, I understand all these things, but I would like to know in details. He says, don't worry. It's not only you are alone. This is a process. It was there, it is there, it will be there. Each people have got their different opinion. Each person has got their own opinion. That's why few verses we'll be discussing from 4th verse onwards. We'll start discussing about different type of opinion. So there are differences in opinion for the same liberation. Each one talk differently. In fact, based on this different type of organization, different type of religion, and all these diversities that has happened because of all these things. So it highlights. Let us look at one verse at least, verse number 4. Satyam kechit prasansante tapa saucham tatha pare kshemam kechit prasamsante tatheva samamarjavam. Satyam kechit prasansante tapah saucham tatha pare kshamam kechit prasamsante tatheva samamarjavam. beautifully. Says beautifully, Satyam kechit prasasanti. So prasamsanti means praise, highlight. So what they do? Some people do highlight that mere speaking the truth, one will get liberation. If you just keep speaking truth, don't worry, liberation will come. Just stick to the truth. How each one highlights one aspect of the value and wants to highlight this is the truth, you don't have to worry, this is the means for liberation. Just keep speaking truth, you will be liberated, don't worry. Some people say, no, don't worry, you need to do tapa, you need to do austerity. So only austerity will give you liberation. Some people say, no, you need shaucham. You need to do purification. Anta sauchya, bahya sauchya. Starting with bahya sauchya. Outer purification, and which again leads to inner purification. Because I am not here to highlight two main things, because we will be discussing our main thing. And Kshama kechiti prasansanti, already I really brought because of this point before. Some other people do talk about Kshama, forgiveness. Oh, that I have not translated. I am sorry. Oh, Kshama kechiti prasansati. I am sorry, one line I have missed. How come? Kshama kechiti prasansanti. Some other people do highlight, do pressurize to practice Kshama, forgiveness. So we have to add in the translation. Tatheva samam arjavam. And of course some other people do talk, there should be equanimity. You should be same. Whether somebody slaps you or puts a garland. That's why somebody said in India, when somebody slaps in one cheek, you have to show other cheek. All our political statement, don't worry, that has no value at all. Just to mislead people, to present that you are great. In reality, not. However, that some people highlight about samam that you should have sameness. Practice. That means what you do when there is something wrong. So you have to control. You understand? And when something becomes good also, you want to smile. Wow. And of course, some people say, no, arjavam. This is another value. All our values being taught. That straightforwardness. What you think, that you should speak. And what you speak, that you should work. That means there should be alignment. Not thinking something and talking something and functioning in different way. So remember, we'll be seeing a lot of points later on. Kechit danam prasansati pitu karma tatha pare kechit karma prasansati kechit vairagyam utamam. We'll be seeing some 4 to 5 verses like this. It will keep continuing. Up to 8 it will continue. 4 to 8. Please understand, all these are values. Just I am summarizing so that all these are values, nothing wrong in it. We need to imbibe all these values in our day-to-day life. But because these values are there with us, or because of this value only, don't think that you will be liberated. You will be a valuable person. You will be a worthy person. But that does not mean that you will be liberated. So don't, confuse liberation with the values. It's exactly like a child thinks from the childhood that I don't have money, that's why I don't have freedom. Now let me work to have money so that I will have freedom. That's why all the teenagers are rebellious, because of mainly this reason. When they want pocket money, they don't get. So when they don't get properly pocket money, always they go against their parents. This is the general rule. Okay, there are some exceptions, which is different thing altogether. So then what happens? They want to prove that they have to earn money. Whether parents could not provide or did not provide, that's another. So then what happens is, now the child has grown up, wants now to have money, so that more, if I have money, I have freedom. Please understand, you have money, but that doesn't mean that you have freedom. That's why those people destroy their freedom, and in fact they make more complicated their life. Can you see this point, how it works? As it happens with reference to money and freedom, and wrongly we associate as a child because of pressure, because of the problem that we have gone through. Now same thing also with reference to values. Each values are important. Like money is important. We need money. But money doesn't give the freedom. Money gives the capacity to exercise our choice. More money we have, more choice we have. That's all. More than that, money doesn't have anything. But what happens, other than that, we impose all other values upon money. So how it happens with reference to money, so also it happens with reference to all other values, which we'll see in details. Please close your eyes. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.